I heard you last night with our boy Bobby Carpenter. I was driving to football practice and took in quite a bit of the college football playoff, the committee reveal last night, listening to you guys.
Thanks,
as usual, you sounded great, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was awesome.
Don't tell anybody I did part of the show driving. I had to take my daughter to a lesson last night, so don't tell anyone. What'd you think? Now I suck on these shows because I don't get mad about anything. No, I'm not like PO. It's like, oh, how dare they? And yet there's other people I'm like, dang, I wish I could be that mad about it. Nothing really surprised me or shocked me or made me that angry last night. How about you?
It's basically, the top 17 spots are basically the AP.
Yeah.
The only difference was they flip-flopped Georgia and Ohio State. The AP had Georgia 2, Ohio State 3. The playoff committee had Ohio State 2, Georgia 3. Everything else, 3 through 14 was the same, or 3 through 13 was the exact same as the AP. And then 14 and 15, they had flip-flopped in the CFP. They had LSU at 15 and A&M at 14, which they should. They just played. A&M beat them. I didn't even realize. I thought initially the only difference was Georgia-Ohio State because I guess I omitted to acknowledge that the AP put LSU ahead of A&M, which makes zero sense to me. They just played. Doesn't that game matter? But I thought it was essentially that. I think the one surprise later was Army at 25.
Yeah.
And I know they've played, I think, the 133rd strength of schedule. Like, they've played a really, really cake schedule, but they've won by double digits. I figure 8-0 gets you better than that. So that was a little surprising they were that low. I thought, the AP had Clemson higher than the committee, and then the committee had Pitt higher than the AP. So that was a little different. I think the biggest thing that stood out to me, it was, and I guess I'm like you, I'm not like heels dug in the ground mad, but how's BYU 9? Like my biggest thing is like I'm nervous if I'm the Big 12. And they had a rough weekend. I was on the call for the Iowa State upset by Texas Tech. That was a blow. And then Kansas State losing to Houston, that was a blow. Those two teams check in at 17 and 19. But BYU undefeated. They've got wins over their number 13 SMU on the road. And they've got a win 38-9 against the 19-ranked Kansas State Wildcats. And they're only 9? Now, it kind of gets down to, do I think if Tennessee and BYU played tomorrow, would I take Tennessee over BYU? Yeah, I would. But that's more of like a power rating and what I think. Like, it's on some level, like, don't we need to give BYU credit for being undefeated and having multiple top 19 wins on their resume? I think Texas is better than them, but who's Texas beat? Texas doesn't have a top 25 win.
Okay. Let me pose this to you.
Penn State doesn't have a top 25 win.
Speaking my language. I heard Ari Wasserman bring this up, and it's kind of resonated with me. How do you view a loss? Like, in other words, let me give you an example. Tennessee loses to Arkansas. Bad loss, right? Absolutely. But it's on the road, field storming, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Texas loses to Georgia. Georgia's obviously better than Arkansas, but Texas is at home.
Yep.
They're favorites, and they get smoked. Yeah. So when they're going up against comparable opponents, it's like, wow, can they really compete? Meanwhile, Tennessee backs up its loss to Arkansas by going out and beating Alabama. Yep. So I've kind of, I don't know, it's got me thinking about things a little bit differently.
Yeah, it does. It does. But like, the other thing too, just in general, like, I was expecting something different than the AP. The other thing too, I pulled up the old BCS. It's almost the exact same old BCS. Like, if you pull up the old BCS 1 through 15, I think there's 2 subtle differences, but that's it. Like, it's interesting. Sorry, my dog is not happy.
Hey, don't worry.
About this other dog.
We got 3 dogs here at Cavens, and at any moment they could snap. So I completely understand. No worries at all.
So, golly, he was not happy. I'm here in the office studio, and Rowdy saw a dog walk by, and he said, not up in here. But, I don't know. I guess I was just, and I don't know what I was expecting. I'm not mad about anything. I just think some things don't make a lot of sense. And it really does. So let me ask you this. And I was thinking about this morning. If Oklahoma was still in the Big 12, I want you to close your eyes. Do me a favor. If you're driving, don't do this.
I'm not driving, so
close your eyes. Close your eyes. Imagine Oklahoma's still in the Big 12, and it's not a BYU next to their name, but that resume is one of the Oklahoma Sooners. Where are they ranked in this opening poll? Because I would argue they would be ahead of Miami, and they'd be a top 4 team.
Yeah, maybe 2.
And it is unfortunate that the committee does it, the AP does it. I mean, I probably fall victim to it sometimes. Brand bias is an issue. And I think if you're a brand, you don't really care. But if you're a BYU, it sucks. Indiana, and a lot of people are really, upset with Indiana being 8. And I would have been okay if they were higher. I actually look at BYU as being a little more disrespected, and it's only because Indiana, though they've been impressive in their wins, won by at least 14 points in all their 9 victories, they haven't really played anybody. They got 2 wins against teams with winning records, beating Washington and beating Nebraska. They've got the 103rd ranked strength of schedule, whereas, again, BYU, they've got multiple wins against the committee's top 19 teams. So, that's where I look at, those are the 2 teams I think most people are like, it's just outrageous. How can you do this? and I can see where that's coming from. And for me, it's more so BYU than Indiana, because I do value, who did you beat? If you're beating good teams and you're undefeated, there's no blemish, that needs to be reflected in the rankings. But I know this. It's going to be a lot more carnage over the next 4 weeks. So some of this is going to sort itself out. But for instance, again, it's just another little scenario. Tennessee at 7, Indiana at 8. Whatever, everybody's in. Well, the difference is going to be when you see the bracket, 7 and 8 play, and that's a home game for Tennessee where Indiana has to go on the road. So there is going to be some of this that the seeding – it's going to matter, and it's going to, for some of these, once it all plays out, we have the full resumes in front of us, there's going to be the difference, though it's very small, in a team hosting and having to go on the road, which is going to be a pretty big factor, I would think, come December.
A couple of teams that are on the outside looking in at the moment. I know we got a lot of season left, but who are a couple of teams that you think good chance they're on the right side of this equation when it's all said and done?
Well, I think the winner of Alabama LSU's got a great opportunity. I know Alabama's inside that top 12 right now, but I look at that game this weekend in Baton Rouge as an elimination game. You lose, I think you're done. I don't see a path forward with a third loss that you're making it. You win, obviously both teams still got a little work left to do, but I think you're in a really good spot if you're one of those 2 teams. So, outside looking in, I look at. And I've got to check the Big 12. I've got to check the Big 12 tiebreaker scenarios. But, Colorado feels like they're in a pretty good spot. Now, their path is to win a Big 12 championship, but I think they're starting to play their best football at the right time. That loss they had to Kansas State, Travis Hunter got hurt in that game. He barely played any at all. And I think that when you look at – they got a tough one coming up this weekend going to Lubbock. If they can get past – Texas Tech on the road in Lubbock, which we all know weird things happen in Lubbock, they're a team that I look at that's I think could make some noise inside of the Big 12. So that would be a team. I mean, I think Ole Miss, if Ole Miss can beat Georgia this week in Oxford, which the odds makers are saying they got a good chance, that's only a 2.5-point spread. I think Ole Miss is set up in a great spot. It's almost like you win this week and I mean, we'll see. You still got to go to Florida and win the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State, who still hasn't won a game in SEC play. But, right, I mean, as bad as it seemed like fans have been upset with Lane Kiffin and season hasn't gone the way you think, if they win this game this weekend, I think they're getting in the college football playoff. And they got a chance as a 2-loss team to even be in an SEC championship scenario.
It's such a new way of thinking, man. If we talked about this yesterday, I apologize, but I was doing the scoreboard show on 84 Saturday night, and after the A&M loss to South Carolina, I was like, well, that takes A&M out of the playoff picture. But then I'm like, does it?
No.
Because, no, if they beat Texas in a couple of weeks, they're right back in this thing.
Yes.
So and I kind of feel the same way about Ole Miss, right? And you just hit it on the head. They lost to Kentucky and they got beat by LSU. Bro, they go beat Georgia this weekend. They're in this thing.
Yes.
So it's a whole new way of thinking.
And A&M, to your point, like Texas got to go to Kyle Field, got to go to College Station. Like there is a very real scenario where that is a SEC championship play-in game. Like you win, right. You're going to get in the playoff and you're going to go to Atlanta and play for the SEC championship, which is pretty awesome if you think about the fact that this rivalry's been on hold and the first year you get it back, the potential implications that game's going to have is going to be tremendous. And, what about Penn State? Like, what's Penn State's best win? Like, some of this is just like my one issue that I had with what I heard last night from Ward Manuel. It seems like, and I think, you've already kind of touched on it, but like they're valuing good losses almost more than good wins. Doesn't it feel that way?
Yes.
Is that right? Should we, because Penn State played Ohio State close at home and lost, like what are their good wins? They don't have a win over the committee's top teams either. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see exactly how this thing shakes out, but I did not like seeing Penn State ahead of Indiana personally.
They're not.
But to your point, like I could sit here and work myself into a lather, get myself all hot and bothered and heated. I guess none of it really got me that sideways. But as more games happen and we get closer, I'm sure we'll all get a little bit more anxious and fired up. I know this, when I saw the matchups for the playoff games, which, spoiler alert, I'm going to get a chance to call one of those bad boys, which I'm so fired
dude,
up
that
about.
is awesome.
Cannot wait.
That's awesome.
And I have no idea what it's going to be. Obviously, we don't know the matchups at all, but I'll be at one of those home site venues for one of those games. When you looked at those matchups in the first round, even Ohio State, Boise State, but the other ones, Texas, Bama, it was Indiana, Tennessee, Penn State, Notre Dame. Yum, give me some of that, Plank. Like that. And I know for Oklahoma fans, they're upset and they're disappointed. They're not going to be a part of that equation this season. And I get that. Everybody wants to be in there and be a part of that, and that's going to be the new kind of standard barrier, right? That's going to be the expectation for a lot of programs, Oklahoma no different, to be a playoff team, and you should want that. But just as college football fans in general, if seeing some of those matchups and as this becomes a reality doesn't get you fired up, boy, something's wrong with you, because I was getting pretty giddy last night.
Dusty, based on the reports that have been out there about what the Big Ten wants, what the SEC wants, Sankey, Petiti, we know that they basically want it locked up to where there's 4 bids for each conference. It's just baked into this thing. After the first rankings that we've got, I mean, do they even really need that? Is it just going to play itself out to where the SEC and Big Ten get 8, 9 teams in every time?
Most of the time, it's going to work out exactly like that, Josh. They don't have to have that. If I was, what I would say is, I think the initial, if memory serves, when they first talked about this, wasn't there? It was at least on the table that was it 4-4? I remember that the Big 12 and the ACC had a chance to get 2 guarantees. And I think if you could go back and revisit that, maybe that's if there's a 14 team. If they expanded,
it was
2
4,
teams,
4, 2, 2, 1.
Yes, I got to be honest with
Something
you.
like that.
I think if you're in the Big 12 and you're the ACC, I think you sign up for that immediately. I just look at this thing and it's trending toward one Big 12 team getting in. Mm-hmm. And, even SMU sitting there at 13, if they meet up with Miami beats them. One ACC team is going to get in too. Like, I almost feel like, to your question, Josh, I don't think the Big 10 and the SEC need it. I think it's the ACC and the Big 12 that need it. to guarantee that they're going to get multiple teams in each year. I mean, think about it. There's 4 Big Ten schools in the top 8 right now,
Right.
which interestingly enough, there's no other Big Ten schools in the top 25, but 4 in the top 8. And I want to say I counted 7 in the top 16 of the SEC. 7. It's almost half, guys. Almost half of the top 16 teams in the initial rankings are in the SEC. So I feel pretty confident the Big Ten, the SEC are going to get their schools in. I'm a little bit worried about Big 12 and the ACC finding a path to get multiple teams in this initial one because Notre Dame's, that's another team. Notre Dame's in a great spot. You know, them sitting there at 10, teams in front of them are going to lose and have another loss. And, you know, I think that even though they had that loss to Northern Illinois, they're in a pretty good spot. And if they handle their business and win the games they're supposed to the rest of the way, they're going to steal one of those spots that could have gone to the ACC or Big 12.
Dusty Dvoracek? I haven't even asked, have I?
I'm going to see former Sooner quarterback and former offensive lineman for the Oklahoma Sooners. I have the Tennessee Volunteers hosting Mississippi State, ESPN primetime. We'll be on the same time as the Sooners and the Tigers, but I'll be in Knoxville, Tennessee. My first time to be there for Neyland at night on the call. The last time I was at Neyland at night was the Baker Mayfield Sterling Shepard game way back when.
Game.
I believe that was circa 2015, if memory serves.
That's right. That was your first. No, it wasn't your first year at ESPN. Well,
That was my last year with you.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
I was trying to think. We had a good time. That was a great trip. And we got the result as Oklahoma fans that we wanted. So
yes.
It was fun. All right, let's hit some of these texts for Dusty. And I thought this was good because we haven't spent a lot of time talking about Oklahoma and Missouri this weekend. So the question was, ask Dusty, this is from Greg and Muskogee, what he has seen on Missouri's and from Missouri's rush defense. How good is this team stopping the run, I guess, is what Greg's asking, Dusty.
They've been solid. You know, I had them against Auburn, so I've watched them on tape. Texas A&M ran the football very effectively on them. That was kind of the first time that, you know, they showed to be susceptible to getting the ball run on them. They did a nice job against Auburn, the game I had, and then Alabama had a ton of success running the football on them. So by far, their 2 best opponents that they played has found quite a bit of success. I think their defensive tackle play is solid. Their edges, just okay. I don't think that their edges have been great, but I do like what they have on the interior of their defensive line. A couple veteran guys that have played a lot of football for them. Chris McClellan is a big body guy that they brought in from Florida who's played well. And then Christian Williams, a little smaller, a little twitchier, lost a little bit of weight, but that'll be probably the biggest challenge from the interior. A couple of different linebackers they rotate in. Tristan Newsome, solid player, and they got a guy, Corey Flagg, who I think's got pretty good speed. So I think overall they're kind of in a mixed bag, to be honest, during SEC play. They performed well against Vanderbilt for the most part. They performed well against Auburn, but against A&M and against Alabama, they did not play as well. So I think that they're a defense that you can have some success, and I hope Oklahoma really expands upon what they're able to do there against Maine. I really like the counter scheme stuff that I saw them doing, and the way that I saw Javonte Barnes allow his blocks to set up and find some success there.
Sam in Tulsa. Are you okay taking a question for next season, Dusty?
Sure, let's go. Yeah.
First, I feel like the defense is actually going to be better next season with what we have and what's coming in. Saying we have the right quarterback and running backs and a wide receiver room that will be healthy, it seems like the only thing this team needs to be successful is an offensive line. The question then is, can OU go nationwide and cherry pick a way above average group to fill these positions?
Look, I think that there's reasons to be optimistic for the future, no doubt, in some of those places. I mean, you're going to have, some spots that you're going to have to replace, but yeah, they've definitely recruited very well defensively. I think that's why, you should be optimistic moving forward. Offensive line-wise, I mean, I think that a lot of these young guys will continue to develop, but I would hope that they are able to be competitive in the transfer portal market and try to, be able to go get some proven, established guys out of the portal. I mean, I know that you tried to utilize the portal this past year, and it can be hit and miss from there. But yeah, I would hope that they are very active. What I think they got a massive recruit coming in too. I don't keep up with the recruiting as close as many, but I know that again you got to hold on to them, sign them through December. But I'm pretty confident that they got one of the top offensive tackles in this upcoming class that's been committed to Oklahoma. So hopefully you can secure that and continue to add quality young talent while also supplement that with some proven veteran talent. The only issue with offensive linemen in the portal is everybody's after offensive linemen in the portal, right? I mean, it's a very, very competitive marketplace because, look, there's just a shortage of quality offensive linemen. But I would imagine Oklahoma, I would hope, is going to be active and going to be very competitive to try to shore up any holes that they potentially have up front.
I like this from Burley Boomer. Because I mentioned that I was listening to you this morning, you and Danny, and that you had Dan Mullen on. Yep. So Burley Boomer writes, okay, Dusty, off the record, did you and Coach Mullen have any discussions, private or otherwise, about the vacant OU offensive coordinator's job? It's been a popular name.
We did not. I did not ask Coach. I like Coach Mullen a lot. He's great, and I think he is a very, very smart offensive mind, but no, I'm sorry. My apologies. I have not I have not infiltrated him, the inner workings of what he potentially has going on if he wants to step out of the broadcast booth and put a headset back on.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say, just to follow up on that. He seems to really have created a nice niche in the broadcasting world, and I wonder if that desire to be a major OC or what the motivation is to if he wants to be a coach again. Like, I don't know Coach Mullen enough, and I haven't had a chance to work with him yet. But I get the sense, Dusty, that he's really a guy that's kind of digging the TV world right now in the radio world.
Yeah, and did you hear the comment that he made about how well he sleeps at night? And wakes up feeling really good, not having to worry about all the stress that comes with being a college coach. I mean, I think that's very real. These are, whether you're a high-level coordinator, a high-level coach, these are pressure cooker of jobs, and you're well compensated for that, no doubt. And these coaches love to compete, and there's obviously that opportunity to go succeed and that reward of having success and everything that comes with that. I'm not gonna ignore all the positive that comes with it, but man, when you can just talk about college football, I mean, and Dan Mullen's having fun.
Yeah,
like he's having fun. Like, he is enjoying and embracing every aspect of this, and he's not having to have any stress. I mean, got a place by the lake, gets to go out in his boat all the time, likes to surf, just kicking back. So I don't know. I have not pushed him hard on it. I might have asked. I might not have gotten told anything either. So I don't know exactly where he resides with all that. He was a really successful head coach at Mississippi State, and I think he was far more successful at Florida than anybody wanted to give him credit for. And I would have to imagine that his name is going to pop up, whether it's head coaching opportunities, very high-level offensive coordinator opportunities, and I really don't know what his level of interest would be for either. So my whole point was everybody wants to know, who would you try to go hire? That would be one of the first phone calls just to gauge, A, is there any interest? B, is being a coordinator even something you'd be willing to do? Because it might not. He might only be interested in leaving – being what he's doing currently to go be a head coach somewhere at a big-time school. And it would not surprise me if there is quality jobs and athletic directors that have him on a short list to potentially bring in and want to run their program.
This, not necessarily a question, but we've seen a couple of people mention Jalil Farouk, Deion Burks, Slim Brady. Inside sources saying they're both back. We've kind of had a split this morning. Will one be back? Will both be back? If Oklahoma gets either Jalil Farouk or Deion Burks back this week for Missouri, how impactful? What would it mean?
It'd be huge, man. I mean, either one of those guys. Now, I mean, there's going to be some rust probably from either guy, but, I mean, look, Deion Burks can win. Jalil Farouk can win one-on-one situations. I mean, these are veteran guys that have played a lot of football. They're both excellent with the football in their hands. So you just get those guys the ball, spit on the ball on a 5-yard hitch, on a bubble on the perimeter, and both of those guys can get you added yardage. And that you want to talk about helping any quarterback, and Jackson Arnold, when you can just make an easy throw, get the ball to a pass catcher, and they can get you that yak yardage. I mean, that's big time. So I'm not even going to venture a guess, boys. I'll cross my fingers and hope that we get one, both, whatever. Anything would help in that wide receiver room, but I think it's significant. I think that you'd be fooling yourself not to think otherwise. I mean, it's pretty clear that we've had some nice stories, emerge at wide receiver with what we've seen recently with Jacob Jordan. That's been really cool. And I'm fired up for the young man. I mean, he's been awesome to watch. But JJ Hester, I mean, hey, the 90-yard touchdown, we talked about that. That's great. Those two guys are potential difference makers.
True.
And you need difference makers on the field. And, and especially, you look at the flip side of it. I have not seen – have you seen anything Plank on Brady Cook?
Oh, dude, yes, but it was just the answer that Drinkwitz gave that was very generic. Hey, we got an injury report that'll come out on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Everything else that I've read and that I've seen leads me to believe that he is not playing, not just this week, but maybe in the next 2 games.
Well, I know the point spread flipped about 4 points. It went from Missouri being a 1.5-point favorite to Oklahoma being a 2.5-point favorite.
Right.
That's a significant line move, and it would tell you that somebody thinks that Brady Cook ain't playing.
Agreed.
So I think that's a huge factor. I mean, I know the question was about the Oklahoma wide receivers. Yes.
Sure, yeah.
Significant. And I think as much as anything, they can win one-on-one matchups when they go man-to-man coverage. They understand zone coverage. They can sit down and find open space. And then really, as much as anything, just get those two guys the football because they're excellent after the catch. But I think right along with, as far as injuries impacting this game, there is a big difference between Brady Cook running this offense and Drew Pine running this offense. And so I think that is a big factor, not necessarily in the preparation. Brady Cook's a better runner. He's not a guy, he is a sneaky good runner. And so I think that, that's an element of it, but just the understanding of this offense and, I think how to get the football to the playmakers on it. One thing that they have not done a great job of so far this season is getting the ball to who I thought was going to be one of the absolute best players in college football this season, in Luther Burden.
Luther Burden, yeah.
His numbers are down significantly, and they're going to try to hand it to him. They're going to try to spit him the ball in easy ways, and whether it's Drew Pine or Brady Cook, but especially down the field, Drew Pine has struggled to be accurate and locate targets down the field. So I think that is a massive factor in this game. Theo Weiss is going to be jacked up for this one, and
Sure.
that he's going to be a big part of this offensive game plan. So I think that obviously they've got talented wide receivers. They got a really good tight end in Brett Norfleet, and between Weiss, Burden, and I think Mookie Cooper, he's not gotten the touches this year, but he's a good third option at wide receiver. That's the strength of this offense. They have not run it nearly as effectively as they did last year with Cody Schrader. But if Drew Pine's the quarterback, man, that really hinders their ability to push the ball down the field and maybe expose an area of Oklahoma's defense that has been questionable at times this year with giving up, chunk plays in the downfield passing attack.
All right, we'll let you go on this, Dusty. What has been your take on Drinkwitz? You've done a couple Missouri games. You mentioned the Auburn game. Had great success at App State. I feel like with some of the recruiting stuff, he's kind of rubbed fans the wrong way. The Josh, we stand on business comments. I don't know if that was the greatest look ever, but what have you kind of made of what he's done and the kind of coach he is?
He's I've gotten a chance to know him pretty well, so
I figured, yeah.
He's been nice to me. I've got nothing bad to say about him. I thought prior to last season he hadn't done much. Mm-hmm. I thought he had been very average at Missouri his first 3 seasons. I think he was just under 500 for his career prior to last season. And last season, it kind of all just clicked for him. And they go 11-2, and I had them in the Cotton Bowl, and they beat Ohio State. I know Ohio State was out of quarterback and had some different players not playing that game, but you win 11 games, you win a Cotton Bowl. That's a massive year anywhere, and especially there in Columbia, Missouri. So my question is, can they sustain it? And it doesn't feel like it. I know they're 6-2, and CFP had them at 24, but it seems like there's a lot of fool's gold in that. So I think he's a solid coach. I don't know if I think he's an elite coach, but I think that given the 11-win season, he's got some backers there for right now. But if this season kind of comes off the rails, you know how it is, man. You're only as good as where you currently are. I'm sure there'll be some people voicing some displeasure, but I'll say this. I don't think that there's any love lost between these two coaching staffs. They recruit for similar players. I think the Caden Green situation rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. So I think that it'll be a fiery matchup from a coaching perspective between Coach V and Eli this weekend. I can't wait for it.
All right, buddy. Have a safe trip to Knoxville, man. It should be a blast. Really appreciate your time.
You got it, man. You guys have a great weekend. And I got to tell you, man, I don't know. I'm probably overly optimistic. I feel good about Oklahoma's chances this weekend. I told you that yesterday. I think Oklahoma goes out, plays well. I think there's a great opportunity for them to get a nice road victory. So when I talk to you next week, I look forward to talking about a Sooner win against Missouri.
A victory Tuesday. Thanks, Dusty. Have a good trip, buddy. See you, man. Love that guy. Dusty Dvoracek, he'll be on the call of the Tennessee-Mississippi State game, but that's happening at the exact same time as the Oklahoma showdown with Missouri.